Hi, my name is Miles. I'm 33 years old, and until about 3 months ago, I was absolutely convinced I'd cracked the code on happily ever after. I had the same woman's laughter echoing through my kitchen every morning, the same set of keys on the hook by the door, and the same quiet certainty that whatever curveballs real life tried to pitch at us, we'd keep knocking them out of the park together. I want you to picture the scene. Thursday dawn in late spring, sunrise leaking pink through the blinds, kettle hissing away on the stove. Serena, my wife, my former roommate, my best friend, leans against the counter, sipping coffee from a mug we bought on our honeymoon in Maui Bay. She's scrolling through her phone and humming along to some lo-fi playlist. I'm half awake, hunting for a clean shirt and mentally rehearsing the numbers I have to present to my engineering team at Mercury Dynamics in 2 hours. From the outside, it looks like the opening shot of a commercial for contentment. Before I go further, quick favor. Drop a line in the comments and tell me where you're tuning in from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and it always blows my mind to read things like watching from Nairobi while cooking dinner or catching this on the night shift in Nebraska. It reminds me we're a giant village swapping campfire tailies. Anyway, back to my boilerplate paradise. Serena and I met 9 years ago at Marigold University during a weekend service project. She was in the psychology department. I was wrapping up the final semester of my mechanical engineering degree. We spent the day nailing siding onto a half-built duplex for a program called Habitat for Homes. My main memory is sweating through cheap work gloves while she told a volunteer coordinator a joke that made everyone drop their hammers from laughing too hard. I asked her out for coffee. She countered with milkshakes at Marlowe's Diner, and about 1,000 French fries later we discovered we'd been yapping for 6 straight hours. Fast forward, a small wedding beneath maple trees behind her parents' place, a modest starter house in Millbrook Heights, and 6 solid years of what I'd rank, a little arrogantly, as an 8.5 out of 10 marriage. Sure, sometimes I'd leave damp towels on the bed and forget her mom's birthday. She in turn could turn the thermostat down to Arctic expedition while I slept. But we talked things through, split chores, saved money, and even adopted a scruffy rescue mutt named Maverick. Now here, where the universe yanked the emergency brake. Random Tuesday night, end of a long workday. I'm sprawled on the couch, half watching a show, half waiting for an online game update. Serena comes in wearing that determined yet nervous expression people get right before they click cancel on something you didn't even know was optional. She kills the TV with the remote, folds her arms, and says, "We need to talk." Tell me, have you ever heard those 4 words and felt your stomach plunge like an elevator missing its floor? What did you do? Did you brace yourself or crack a joke? Share it below. I could use the solidarity. I straighten up, heart thumping. Everything okay? She takes a breath. I think we should try a body-neutral partnership. I blink. A what? No sex, she clarifies, pronouncing each syllable like she's unveiling a revolutionary business plan. At least for a season. I've been listening to these incredible women online, and they say physical contact can distract couples from deeper intimacy. Now, Serena has always been the more philosophical half of our duo, but this felt like a sudden total rewrite of Chapter 1. I laughed, nervous reflex, waiting for her grin, the gotcha punchline. It never came. Her face stayed perfectly earnest. Wait, sir, where is this coming from? I've been doing a lot of reading. The Awakened Sisterhood podcast explains how patriarchal cultures condition women to treat their own bodies like public property. If we step back from physical expectations, we grow spiritually. Let me pause and zoom out. I grew up in Mendota Springs, population 18,000, where people don't talk about energetic boundaries. They talk about snow tires and high school football rivalries. My parents just celebrated 38 years of marriage. They still hold hands in the grocery store. So for me, physical affection is braided right into loyalty, comfort, the whole shebang. Trying marriage without it sounded like running a car without motor oil. I asked the obvious, "Are you unhappy? Did I miss something?" She shook her head but wouldn't meet my eyes. It's not about unhappiness, it's about growth. Growth, that word kept echoing. Growth should feel expansive, right? But all I felt was something shrinking, some private territory I'd assumed was ours alone. Here's a quick checkpoint for you. If your partner suddenly requested a major lifestyle shift, no warning, no prior hint, how would you respond? Would you agree to a trial period? Push back. Maybe you've been there already. I'm genuinely curious. Back in the living room, the air turned thick. Serena laid out her vision. Separate bedrooms for now, weekly check-ins. sacred solo time every evening. I tried reasoning, joking, pleading. Isn't affection also a language of love? Aren't we the authors of our own relationship, not some influencer with a ring light and affiliate links? She stayed calm, even gentle, but immovable. Miles, if you can't support me exploring this, you're not really supporting me. It was like being told you don't understand what water is while you're standing waist-deep in a lake. I said something clumsy about marriage being teamwork. She replied I was centering male desire. That phrase stung worse than anything because it painted me with a brush big enough to erase every bedtime story I'd read to my nieces, every chore chart shared, every tear I'd wiped off her cheek when her dad went through chemotherapy. The conversation ended with no blow-up, no curse words, just a cold, quietly seismic silence. She retreated to the bedroom, locked the door, and left me staring at the reflection in the black TV screen, wondering whether the man blinking back was secretly some villain. I slept on the couch. Correction, I tried to sleep. Mostly I replayed reel after reel of old memories. Our first road trip to Marble Coast, the time her car died and I spent 6 hours in a snowstorm replacing the alternator, the Sunday mornings she used to perch on the bathroom counter singing 90s pop while I shaved. Had I turned those snapshots into a highlight reel so polished I couldn't see the cracks? Or had the cracks been pasted into her mind by somebody else? Somewhere around 4:00 a.m., eyes sandpaper dry, I stumbled to the kitchen for water and saw her phone glowing on the table. A notification banner, awakened Sisterhood live in 5 minutes. The profile image showed a confident woman in a sun halo, palms raised like Moses parting the Red Sea. I didn't snoop. The phone was locked, but that little banner felt like a neon sign blinking all is not well. Lesson number 1, feel free to scribble this down. When a relationship pivot appears out of nowhere, ask what outside voices might be steering the wheel. Sometimes the emergency isn't actually inside the car, it's the GPS you didn't know someone else had programmed. Morning arrived and Serena drifted into the kitchen, expression serene, as though the previous night's bombshell were no bigger than rearranging throw pillows. She poured her cereal, asked if Maverick had been fed, then kissed the top of my head, a purely polite peck, before heading to her office downtown. I just stood there with a spoon midair, realizing the dynamic had flipped. She was calm, I was the storm. Throughout that workday at Mercury Dynamics, I kept glancing at my wedding ring, twisting it like a worry stone. My design presentation went off without a hitch. I can autopilot through CAD diagrams in my sleep, but inside I felt hollow. The minute the last slide clicked off, I booked it to the stairwell, called my buddy Mason from college. He picked up with his trademark, "What trouble, my dude?" I unloaded everything in 10 frantic minutes. Mason's silence on the other end told me the situation sounded even crazier aloud than in my head. Mason finally said, "People don't flip worldviews overnight, man. Something or someone is coaching this." I knew he was right, but that thought brought zero comfort. Because if Serena was the student, who or what was the teacher? And how do you debate a phantom? That evening, Serena asked if I wanted Thai takeout. The normalcy felt surreal. We ate quietly, Maverick dozing between us. Then, as I reached to clear dishes, she said, "I'm starting a boundaries workshop tonight. I'll be in the guest room. Could you keep the TV volume low?" Her tone was sweet, almost tender, like she was asking me to water the plants. My chest tightened. "Boundaries workshop with the Sisterhood?" I asked. "Yes, it'll help me process. Maybe you could find a men's group so we can do parallel work." A men's group. The implication that I too required re-education clanged in my ears. I swallowed my frustration and nodded because the flash of relief in her eyes told me any argument would only reinforce her new narrative. Miles equals resistance, Serena equals awakening. After she disappeared down the hallway, I sat in the semi-dark, scrolling my own phone, searching awakened sisterhood criticism, cult tactics disguised as empowerment, spiritual coaching fees. The results were thin, a few blogs, a Reddit thread, nothing concrete. That actually made me more uneasy. If a group leaves barely a digital footprint, does that mean they're harmless, or just very, very careful? Around midnight, her workshop ended. She padded into the living room, notebook in hand, scribbles covering every inch. She seemed lighter, almost radiant. I stood to speak, but words tangled in my throat. She touched my arm, soft, apologetic, and whispered, "I love you. Trust the process, okay?" Then she headed to the guest room and clicked the latch shut. Maverick trotted over and rested his muzzle on my knee, dog language for you good. I scratched behind his ears and wondered who exactly was shutting which doors, and whether some of them might never swing open again. Reflection time for you, dear listener. Have you ever felt a door in your relationship close so quietly you almost missed the click? And if you did hear it, what did you do next? Comment with your story. You never know who needs to read it tonight. I barely slept, and when dawn broke, I realized something vital. If I didn't start asking hard questions about this sisterhood, about Serena's sudden epiphany, about the bigger definitions of love and personal freedom, I was going to lose more than intimacy. I might lose the us that had always been my compass. That was the moment the story you're hearing now truly began, because confusion turned into curiosity, and curiosity, if you follow it far enough, drags you past comfort and straight into truth. And the truth? Well, truth has a nasty habit of rewriting every map you ever trusted. Things unraveled faster than I ever thought a life could fray. The morning after Serena's first Boundaries workshop, she rummaged through the closet and emerged in a slate-gray blazer I had never seen before, the kind of crisp thing you buy for a corner office, not for counseling families in a homey studio. She paired it with tailored trousers and low heels that clicked like a metronome on our hardwood. Her long hair, gone. In its place was a sharp, chin-length bob with bangs angled to a point, severe enough to slice paper. I stared like a tourist who'd wandered into the wrong house. "New look," I managed. She smiled, tight and mysterious, aligned with my embodiment practice. I didn't even know what embodiment practice meant, but I nodded as though I subscribed to the same newsletter. On her way out, she kissed Maverick on the head, then patted my shoulder like an HR rep concluding an exit interview. The door clicked shut, and silence spread through the kitchen. 2 weeks earlier, she'd been dancing barefoot to old indie tracks while frying French toast. Now I was watching a business-casual avatar stride off to some secret mission. During lunch break, I called Mason again and recapped the haircut, the jargon, the blazer. He whistled low. "My dude, you're describing a quick change cult montage. Keep your eyes open." I laughed it off, but the way my chest tightened told me I believed him. That night, while Serena led an online sovereign sisterhood circle in the guest room, I did my own research. The Awakened Sisterhood's website was polished but thin. Radiant stock photos of women in sunlit meadows, bullet points about reclamation journeys, tiers of membership with soft focus names like Moonstone and Diamond Doorway. Forums required login, and pricing was hidden behind a book, a discovery call, button. My engineer brain flagged every missing data point like a red light on a dashboard. Quick pulse check for anyone listening. Have you ever been lured by a glossy program that promised transformation but kept the price tag hidden until you were emotionally invested? If so, what tipped you off? Drop your story below. Someone scrolling the comments might need that reality check today. Over the next week, Serena's metamorphosis accelerated. She decluttered her half of the closet, stuffing sweats and hoodies into trash bags for donation. She swapped her casual social media posts, pictures of Maverick stealing socks, silly selfies with me, for minimalist graphics overlaid with phrases like divest from external validation and choose radical self-possession. People praised her in comments. "You're glowing. You're the blueprint." I watched the hearts pile up and wondered if the algorithms were cheering a demolition. At meals, she spoke in terms that felt copy-pasted from a webinar. Energetic leakage, somatic sovereignty, womb wisdom. When I asked how her actual day had gone, whether a client finally reconciled with her teenage son, whether the new receptionist was working out, she'd shrug, saying she was holding space to integrate and couldn't share details that early in the processing cycle. The woman who once debriefed every grocery store mishap, down to the funniest mislabeled produce, now treated ordinary conversation like a violation of NDA. I tried to spark nostalgia. One Friday, I ordered takeout from Marlowe's Diner, our old college haunt, and queued up the movie we used to lip-sync during finals week. She sat beside me on the couch but spent the entire runtime scrolling, AirPods in. Halfway through, she rose, murmuring, "Need to reconnect with my circle before bed." She left a barely touched basket of fries and the ghost of our past selves on the coffee table. Around midnight, I heard her laugh through the office door, the easy, sparkling laugh that used to belong to inside jokes only I knew. A man's voice answered, low and encouraging. My pulse hammered. I knocked. The laughter cut off, whispers followed, then silence. She cracked the door. Backlit by her monitor, she looked ethereal, almost translucent. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Perfectly," she said, stepping into the hall and pulling the door shut behind her. "We're concluding a liberation meditation." "Wait, just the Moonstone tier tonight," she said, as though that clarified who the disembodied baritone belonged to. She kissed my cheek cool, businesslike, and vanished toward the guest room. Door, latch, click. That sound again. I lay awake imagining bright avatars on a Zoom grid. Serena framed by ring light, murmuring mantras alongside strangers who'd never set foot in our kitchen yet somehow held the power to decide whether she touched me again. Maverick climbed onto the couch and pressed his weight against mine, a shaggy sandbag of loyalty. I scratched his ears and whispered, "At least you're still you, buddy." He thumped his tail, affirmation in dog language. By day 7, I noticed the passwords had changed. Our Netflix login bounced. The fingerprint ID on Serena's phone was disabled. She angled screens away from me, silenced calls the moment I entered a room. The gulf between us stopped feeling like tension and started feeling like deceit. I gave myself one rule: don't snoop unless you can handle what you find. But rules bend when fear stretches them. Late Saturday, Serena headed to a day-long embodied boundaries intensive. She left before sunrise, armed with a stainless steel water bottle and a leather-bound journal. I watched her car back down the drive. When the taillights disappeared, I paced. Then I noticed her laptop on the kitchen island, lid half closed, still humming. A better man might have walked away. I clicked. Her email was open, maybe a slip, maybe subconscious sabotage. A folder labeled personal caught my eye. Inside, threads with a sender named Avery Reeves. The display picture showed a charismatic woman mid-speech, palms outstretched like a preacher breaking invisible chains. Subject lines read, "Your Radiant Session Recap. Tonight's Sacred Share Zoom. Donation Gratitude." I inhaled, clicked 1. Serena, witnessing your blossoming last night was breathtaking. Remember, the body is no man's marketplace. Every boundary you erect is a brick in your sovereign citadel. Below the signature was a PayPal receipt. $350, Radiant Session Level 2. My stomach rolled. I checked the timestamps. There were at least 8 receipts over the past month, ranging from $50 to $500, totaling more than $3,000. Our shared checking account balanced fine last I looked because automatic transfers kept topping it up, but numbers are numbers. Money out means something else in life goes unfunded. Future vacations, car repairs, maybe the kids we'd once daydreamed about. Another email contained a PDF. The Liberation Ladder, 12 Steps to Exit Patriarchal Containment. I opened it. Step 2, suspend all sexual access. Step 6, reallocate joint finances to self-nurturance. Step 9, initiate communal living with aligned sisters. Images depicted women cutting photos of men out of framed portraits, piling wedding rings into bowls labeled offering. It was glossy, well-designed, and horrifyingly specific. I felt like I'd stumbled into a fire while everyone else toasted marshmallows. Rage boiled, but under the rage pulsed terror. Was I already a framed photograph waiting for the scissors? I took screenshots, every receipt, every step of the Liberation Ladder. Then I closed the laptop exactly as I found it, hands shaking. Pause a moment, listeners. If you discovered secret spending or hidden communications that threaten the foundation of your relationship, would you confront immediately or gather evidence first? Type immediate or collect receipts and share why you'd go that route. Your insight might guide someone balancing on the same knife edge tonight. Serena returned around 8 p.m., glowing like she'd swallowed sunlight. She hugged me unexpected, brief, then said, "I'm exhausted in a good way, full day of energy work." She went to shower and left her phone on the credenza. It buzzed with a text preview, "Avery, so proud of your progress. Remember to ground after you draw the bubble tonight." I stared until the screen dimmed. During dinner, she talked nonstop about an unburdening ritual they'd practiced. Standing in a circle, holding mirrors, chanting vows to love themselves first. I tried listening, I really did, but each new term, solar plexus shield, womb pulse, masculine disruption, felt like another padlock on the door between us. When she finished, I asked as gently as I could, "How much are these workshops costing?" Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Why?" "Because we share finances." Her jaw tensed. "I've made some donations. They're investments in my healing." "How much?" "That's personal." I set my fork down. Personal means you and me, secret means them and you. Her eyes flashed. "I'm not hiding anything. I'm simply not justifying my growth." That conversation ended with plates half full and pulses racing. She retreated again to the guest room. Door, latch, click. Lesson number 2 crystallized as I washed dishes alone. Secrecy is rarely about protection. It's about control. The moment partners start gatekeeping information, the relationship changes shape from a circle to a triangle, 2 people and a shadow authority, no one invited. Remember that if you ever feel a draft you can't locate, check for hidden doors. I tried to sleep, but the liberation ladder steps scrolled behind my eyelids like end credits. Suspend sexual access, reallocate joint finances, initiate communal living. What came after step 12? Divorce? Relocation? Do women vanish into remote compounds in 2025? My logic circuits rammed against irrational fear, but instinct kept whispering, this isn't just a fad. 2 days later, the evidence exploded in my face. I came home early, laptop bag slung over my shoulder, and walked into sage smoke curling through the living room. 4 women I didn't recognize sat cross-legged on throw pillows around a bronze singing bowl. Serena, in flowing ivory pants and a copper pendant, motioned for silence. One woman read aloud, I divest from every thread that binds me to male validation. They dropped lengths of yarn into the bowl, then struck it, sending a metallic hum through the ceiling beams. I coughed, the sage clogged my throat, and waved the smoke away. Serena, I'm allergic, remember. No response. She struck the bowl again. Another woman whispered, hold your feminine boundary, do not break the container. My cheeks burned. This is my house, my lungs are the container. Serena opened her eyes, calm but icy. Miles, please honor the space. Honor the space. I felt like a stranger crashing a seance. Maverick barked from the hallway, agitated. I stared at Serena, waiting for some flicker of the partner who once apologized if she reheated soup too loudly while I napped. Nothing. I retreated to the bedroom, shut the door, and didn't breathe until the hum ceased and quiet returned. On the nightstand lay the framed photo from our 5th anniversary at Marble Coast, her hair whipping in the salt wind, my arm around her waist. She placed a sticky note over my face. It read, remember SCOA, self-centeredness over approval. I sank onto the bed and realized I'd just witnessed step 4 of the liberation ladder in real time. Diminish visual attachment to patriarchal figures. I peeled off the note and felt a fissure crack through my sternum. I needed help. The next day I booked a session with a licensed therapist, Dr. Laurel Chen, someone vetted, credentialed, not streaming from a ring light in a spare bedroom. I spilled the story start to finish. She listened, then said, this has all the markers of coercive persuasion. The isolation, the jargon, the financial commitment. But remember, Serena isn't stupid. She's vulnerable. There's usually an unmet need that the group is meeting. Find the need. Driving home, I mulled that over. What need? We'd talked about having kids soon. She'd seemed excited. She'd launched her practice and gained clients. Unless, was the success itself exhausting her? Was she looking for an off-ramp from responsibilities she couldn't admit felt heavy? I resolved to open dialogue one more time. That night I made her favorite lemon basil pasta and set the table with candles. She arrived late, loose silk blazer floating behind her. She paused at the doorway, wary. I thought we could talk, I said. About what? About us. She hesitated, then sat. 5 minutes in, just as I began describing my fear of losing her to a movement that didn't care about our history, her phone buzzed. She glanced and smiled, a soft flash of joy I hadn't seen aimed at me in weeks. Who's that? I asked. Avery, she's checking that I grounded after sage work. I'd like to meet Avery. Her smile vanished. That's not appropriate, she maintains professional distance. Professional implies a boundary, but you're texting during dinner with your husband. She pocketed the phone, spine stiff. She understands my emotional labor. She holds space in ways you can't. There it was, the wedge fully driven. Another's understanding had displaced mine. I felt the foundation tilt. I didn't raise my voice. If this continues, Serena, we need counseling, neutral counseling, or I don't know where we land. She flinched, then leaned back, arms crossed. This is what Avery predicted, masculine backlash when the feminine rises. So you're following a script now? I asked. She stood, eyes glassy. I won't be gaslit. She left the room, door slamming, candle flames guttered in the gust. I blew them out. Darkness settled, but clarity glimmered. I could no longer battle an ideology wearing Serena's face. I needed a strategy, not persuasion, data, protection, options. The engineer in me woke up. That night, while she meditated behind closed doors, I sketched a timeline, noted transactions, gathered screenshots, filed them in a secure drive. Mason connected me with his cousin, a family law attorney named Marin who offered a discreet consult. I felt guilty, like I was planning a heist against my own marriage, but guilt had to bow to survival. Before I slept, I typed a single sentence into my phone's notes app. When love becomes a battlefield, build armor before you charge. If you're listening and feeling that same Cold War brewing at home, hear me, seeking clarity isn't betrayal, it's first aid. Comment armor if you understand. I lay awake, Maverick snoring on the rug, and realized I'd crossed an invisible line, from husband fighting for connection to strategist preparing for impact. In the span of 2 weeks, a podcast, a PayPal account, and a handful of seductive buzzwords had rewritten the woman I loved. I didn't know whether I was about to lose Serena permanently or find a way to rescue her. But I did know the next move would define everything that followed, for both of us. I woke the next morning with a plan beating in my chest like a second pulse. No more candlelight interventions, no more lectures about energetic leakage. I showered, suited up for work, and drove straight past Mercury Dynamics to a brick office on Pinecrest Boulevard where Marin, Mason's cousin and my newly retained attorney, waited with a legal pad and the calm eyes of someone who's seen every brand of relationship implosion. She listened while I laid out the receipts, the jargon, the sudden pay-to-prey doctrine. When I finished, she slid a packet across the desk. First task, she said, protect your assets. Second, document everything. Third, don't announce moves until they're finished. Think chess, not checkers. It felt clinical, even mercenary, to discuss marriage in terms of line items and burden of proof, yet a strange relief bloomed in my ribs. For weeks I'd been stuck in philosophy class. Now I had a blueprint. On my lunch break, I opened a new checking account at Granite Trust Bank, redirecting my paycheck with 2 electronic signatures and 0 drama. After work, I strolled into our joint branch, withdrew half the remaining balance, and deposited it into the fresh account before the digital dust could settle. The teller chatted about weekend plans. She had no idea she was witnessing a discreet act of triage. That night, Serena hosted another Zoom ritual, this one titled Full Throat Freedom. Her voice flowed down the hallway in windswept cadences. Release the constriction, honor your sovereign, yes. Banish the colonial, no. I sat at the kitchen table with a spreadsheet, transferring utilities into my name alone or severing my connection if the service stayed with the house. Birth certificate, passport, degree transcripts, insurance policies, scanned, encrypted, uploaded to cloud storage only I could reach. The motions were mind-numbing yet oddly soothing, like suturing an invisible wound. Quick checkpoint for anyone listening. Have you ever taken silent steps to exit a situation before announcing you were gone? If so, what preparation saved you the most grief? Drop your wisdom. Future viewers might be packing emotional luggage right now. By Wednesday, I'd toured a dozen apartments and landed on a 12th-floor corner unit downtown. 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, walking distance to coffee strong enough to reboot a soul. Jordan, the realtor, tossed me the keys Friday morning. Standing in that empty echoing space, I felt lighter than I had since Serena's first, body-neutral, decree, like gravity itself had flickered and eased. Back home, Serena spent Friday night in a 7-hour moon release immersion. Translation, I had the house to myself. I packed only what belonged to me before our wedding, clothes, books, my vintage Stratocaster heirloom watch, Maverick's dog bed. Photographs traveled as files on a thumb drive, the frame stayed. The hardest object to leave was our carved cedar dining table, countless Sunday pancakes embedded in those grooves, but a moving truck felt too loud for a quiet escape. I paused at the doorway of the guest room, her sanctuary, where tea lights flickered around a half-finished vision board. Magazine clippings spelled out "Grow the Cage" across a collage of mountaintops and women in power poses. I whispered, "I hope you find what you're climbing for," then shut the door with a gentleness that surprised me. Lesson in real time. Sometimes love asks you to stay, dignity asks you to leave, and survival signs the permission slip. Around midnight, I settled at the kitchen island, pen in hand, Maverick snoring against my foot. I wrote, "Serena, you wanted space from the male gaze. I'm giving you the whole horizon. The mortgage is paid through next month. All documents for division of property will come from Marin Klein-esque. I've enclosed proof of your donations, the liberation ladder, and screenshots of every message that turned husband into antagonist. My departure isn't punishment. It's the boundary you requested, honored at full scale. Take care of yourself. Miles." I sealed the envelope along with a cashier's check for the remaining joint balance, her half down to the penny, then propped it against the coffee maker where she'd see it before the kettle hissed. Finally, I unclipped my house key, placed it beside the envelope, and scratched Maverick's ears. "Time to go, buddy." He wagged once as if to say about time. Driving to the new apartment felt like crossing a state line with no border patrol. I unpacked at dawn, brewed coffee in silence, and watched the city's first commuter train snake past the window. 48 hours melted by. Grocery run, midnight pizza on the floor, extra reps at the gym, beers with Mason where we talked basketball stats instead of cult vocabulary. The absence of tension was so vivid it felt like a new sound frequency, one you notice only after machinery stops. Reflection break. Have you ever exited a toxic loop and been shocked by how quiet normal actually is? Leave a quiet in the chat if you know that eerie piece. Day 4 brought the first volley of notifications. 23 missed calls, 14 texts, subject lines stacked like frantic birds. Where are you? Please respond. We can fix this. I let the phone face down on the counter, screen buzzing itself to exhaustion. On day 5, she showed up at Mercury Dynamics, mascara smudged, blazer swapped for an old hoodie. The receptionist texted me. I asked her to say I was in an off-site meeting. Serena waited 3 hours, then left a handwritten note. I'm scared. Please call. I slid the paper into my briefcase like a leaf pressed between textbook pages. Souvenir, not roadmap. That evening, an unfamiliar number lit up my phone. Thinking it was the courier with my standing desk, I answered. Is this Miles Holden? A smooth contralto, equal parts empathy and authority. Who's asking? This is Avery Reeves, founder of the Awakened Sister. I laughed before she finished. Interesting, you found my number faster than my wife finds her car keys. Miles, I sense a lot of pain. Serena is devastated. Avery, let's skip the pastel-colored concern. How much has Serena paid you? Silence crisp and short. That's between practitioner and client, she finally said. Wrong, it's also between spouses on a joint account. Newsflash, the faucet's off. You'll receive no more payments from anything tied to my name, and if you contact me again, I'll file harassment charges. You're reacting from wounded masculine energy, she replied, placid as a pond. Better wounded than sold, I shot back and ended the call. My hand trembled, but relief surged. Cutting a manipulator off mid-script felt like snipping a puppet's strings. Insight time, predators, financial, emotional, spiritual. Hate closed wallets more than angry words. If you suspect one's circling, lock the coffers first, vent feelings later. 2 more days passed. I hit the gym, nailed a project pitch, discovered Maverick loves elevator rides. Serena's messages shifted from desperation to repentance. I messed up. I want real therapy. Tell me how to make amends. I answered none, but each ding stung like phantom rain. On the 9th evening alone, I brewed tea and scrolled our wedding photos. There she was in that lace dress, barefoot on the lawn, grinning like she'd invented sunlight. I caught myself smiling back at the screen muscle memory. Grief landed, heavy and honest. It whispered, you loved her, still do, but love can't outrun delusion. I clicked the laptop shut and opened a fresh document titled, What I Learned. Top line, a partner's awakening shouldn't require your erasure. Second line, transparency is love's oxygen, secrecy suffocates. I typed until the mug went cold, crafting bulletproof questions I'll ask any future relationship, questions I invite you to borrow. Do we share definitions before we rewrite traditions? Do we consult each other before investing in transformation? Do we treat intimacy as negotiation or ultimatum? Drop the hardest question you insist on in your own relationship below. Your wisdom might spark someone's clarity more than any story I can tell. Toward midnight, my phone chimed with a voicemail transcription. Miles, it's Serena. I understand why you left. I'm meeting with a licensed counselor. I've reported Avery for fraud. Please, when you're ready, call me. No agenda, just accountability. I stared at the words. Progress, manipulation. I couldn't know. I powered the phone off and stepped onto the balcony, city lights blinking like low-orbit stars. Maverick pressed against my leg, warm and real. I whispered, we're okay, boy. He chuffed, nose in the wind. I don't know what tomorrow's call log will look like, whether Serena's repentance will bloom into real change or wilt under the first hard question. What I do know is this. I rebuilt my perimeter and confirmed I'm still the author of my own life. And that, for now, is enough ink to keep writing forward. The knock came on a gray Saturday, the kind of damp morning when the city smudges into one long watercolor. Maverick barked twice, deep, uncertain, and trotted to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Serena, hair tucked behind her ears, cheeks pink from the wind, clutching a folder so tight the edges curled. I'd pictured this moment 100 ways, shouting, pleading, maybe roses. Instead, she just looked tired, ordinary, human. I cracked the door but left the chain. You okay? I won't stay unless you say so, she said, voice small but steady. I owe you explanations, not expectations. Maverick whined, tail wagging. I unhooked the chain and stepped aside. She slipped past, pausing to scratch his fur with a familiarity that pierced me. The apartment still smelled like fresh paint and ground coffee, scents Serena had never shared, but she didn't comment. She headed for the sofa, perched on the edge, folder in her lap. Tea, I asked, mostly to buy a breath. Please. While water hissed, she stared at the skyline as if memorizing every pane of glass. I brought 2 mugs, set them on coasters, and waited. My pulse felt too loud in the quiet. She opened the folder. These are refund confirmations. The bank flagged Avery's account after multiple complaints. I've been reimbursed. She slid the papers across. Every dollar is back where it belongs. That's good, I said, scanning totals identical to the screenshots I'd archived. No tricks, just numbers returning home. I sold the blazers too, she added. Donated the workshop manuals. Haven't logged into any Sisterhood platform in 3 weeks. Her gaze flicked up, shaky. But money was the easy part. She reached into her coat pocket, produced a small voice recorder, and pressed play. A therapist's calm baritone drifted out. Serena, when did you first feel the need to separate your body from intimacy? Serena's recorded voice answered, raw and breaking. When I felt invisible in my own achievements. The Sisterhood told me abstinence made me powerful. It felt simpler than telling Miles I was scared of failing at everything else. I swallowed. Fear, not contempt. That nuance hit harder than any accusation she'd flung weeks ago. She stopped the recording. Dr. Patel suggested I share this because accountability beats apology speeches. She set the device down. I blamed you for shadows that started inside me. I leaned back, letting silence breathe. Eventually, I said, I wasn't perfect either, worked late, missed signals, but I didn't deserve to be recast as a villain by strangers. That's why I'm here, she said, to face the damage, not excuse it. Reflection time for anyone still watching. When trust cracks, do you need evidence of change, or is a heartfelt apology enough? Drop your thoughts. Someone wrestling with betrayal could use your compass. Serena sipped tea, hands trembling. The collective preyed on women hungry for identity. They dangled empowerment like an oxygen mask, then tightened the straps until we could only breathe their air. Her eyes glistened. They told me the fastest road to self-love was erasing every person who'd loved me first. I thought of the sticky note on our photograph, SCOA scrawled in bold marker. The memory still stung, but her confession wrapped context around the wound. What happens now? I asked. I keep real therapy. I volunteer with a nonprofit that tracks online coercion. She exhaled, shoulders sagging. And I respect whatever boundary you set. There it was, the pivot point. I looked around my uncluttered living room, the framed print of Maverick chasing gulls on a beach. The second bedroom I'd turned into a studio for guitar jams I hadn't played in years. Freedom tasted new, but loneliness hid in the aftertaste. Part of me wants to start over completely, I admitted. Another part misses Sunday pancakes, your laugh at 2 a.m., the way you cry at cheesy sport movies. She smiled, a trembling flash of the woman I met at Habitat for Homes. I miss that too. But even if we rebuild, the foundation has to be different, transparent, mutual, no gurus allowed. Lesson etched itself right there. Real partnership is 2 architects drawing blueprints together, not 1 architect and 1 demolition crew. I rose, walked to the balcony slider, stared at raindrops racing the glass. We'd need rules, I said without turning. Full access to each other's fears, no secret mentors, no passwords hidden. Joint counseling, maybe a slow dating phase instead of moving back overnight. That sounds fair, her voice came closer. And if you choose not to, I'll respect that. Loving you means wanting what heals you, even if it's not me. I faced her. The quiet sincerity in her eyes reminded me of our wedding vows more than any framed photo could. Yet I also saw the memory of every door click, every phrase she parroted that made me doubt my own worth. Trust, I realized, is like bone. It can mend, but the fracture line never disappears. You simply choose whether that scar becomes weakness or wisdom. I nodded toward the city. Let's start with coffee next Saturday. Neutral cafe, no agenda, then we'll see. A tear slipped down her cheek, relief, not drama. I'll be there at 10 with 0 talking points. I escorted her to the door. Maverick followed, tail sweeping like a broom across brand new floors. Serena knelt, hugged him, and whispered something that made his ears perk. She stood, placed a plain envelope on the console table. "It's a letter for you," she said. "Read whenever it feels right." She stepped into the hallway, paused. "Thank you for answering the door, Miles. Some people don't get that chance." She walked away, her footsteps echoing until the elevator dinged. I closed the door, leaned against it, breathing in the silence. Instead of tension, the apartment felt expectant, like air before a song. Curiosity nudged. I opened the envelope. Inside was a Polaroid, Serena at 12, braces flashing, holding a science fair ribbon. On the back she'd written, "I used to believe being brave meant doing everything alone. Trying again with you, I'm learning bravery is admitting when I need partnership." I set the photo on my desk beside my list of relationship questions. I added one more. Do we make each other braver together than apart? Your turn, viewers. What single question would you pin to your fridge to guide every future relationship? Share it below. Your words might be the guardrail someone else clings to. Evening settled, city lights flickering on like scattered stars. I tuned the Stratocaster, fingers tracing chords I hadn't played since college. Maverick curled on the rug, snout between paws. I thought about coffee next Saturday, about trust lines healing stronger if fed enough honest weight, about the scar that might guide rather than limit. I'm not sure whether Serena and I will rewrite our story or shelve it as a well-worn classic, referenced but never resumed. Either way, the next chapter, whatever title it earns, will be authored in daylight, margins wide enough for both our truths. And that, for tonight, feels like an ending sturdy enough to stand on or a beginning brave enough to believe in.